Good golly gee gosh darn. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Arcane Archive. That's right. We've got an incredible, incredible obviously being subjective, I suppose. We've got a very, I think, emotional round of tales for you today in today's episode of Cautionary Chronicles. Yeah, this shit is gonna get kind of heavy and rage-inducing or aggravating today. It seems like, that just kind of seemed like the vibe for today, so to speak. Shit is feeling kind of heavy today, so we were like, you know what? Let's just roll with that. Let's hit those feels for whatever reason. We'll take that and we'll just run with it. So here we are. As always, thank you guys so much for being here with us. If you like what we're doing here, please be sure to like and comment on the video. Let us know what you guys think of these stories and the things that are happening and going on. Subscribe and share the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell so that you never miss whenever we post new stories and videos. We normally post one every week on Wednesdays. So hopefully you guys can check them out and never miss whenever we post some new ones. But that being the case, let's go ahead. Let's just dive right in here. Sammy, why don't you go ahead and take it away for us today, bud?
I get to go first.
Yes, you do, sir. This was one of yours.
Yeah, and it made me very sad.
It's an intense one.
Yeah, this is gonna be a longer post. 14-year-old group implodes and turns on GM. This post is more a sense of personal therapy than sharing a horror story I feel is entertaining. It is not entertaining. About 14 years ago, my friends and I started to meet weekly to play TTRPGs. At the time, we were playing Star Wars Saga Edition. Most of that group would be gone, with just two of us being from the original group circa around 6 years ago, when the events that follow began. When our group formed, we agreed that once a GM expressed they were readying to end their game, we'd figure out who the next GM would be so that none of us became the forever GM. It mainly bounced back and forth between T and I. T left and B started GMing opposite me. Another GM, TR, would start soon, although he did not run campaigns anywhere near the length of B or I. About 6 years ago, we started to look like the group we were until today. Z, B, TR, and me. 3 years ago, we added L and A, and Z was always kind of a problem player, would move in and out of the group but for a while, we had another GM, D. Prior to this, I was DM 80% of the time, and I was burnt out on it. During the last 6 years, that 80% would grow to around 90% of the time. For the last year, it was effectively 100% of the time. As even though I was a player in Z's game, I was doing a lot of Z's prep. I was also the peacemaker, keeping personalities from imploding the group. So already, someone is overworked in a hobby that they want to enjoy.
Like all together, and they apparently they had a dynamic where it wasn't just one of them. Although again, I find it interesting and strange that he's a player in Z's game, but somehow doing a lot of Z's prep
work.
Like
I don't know as a player why I would ever be doing prep work for somebody.
I mean, again, unless it was you can help, of course.
Sure.
I could see if you are an experienced GM or if you just know you can maybe help prep some things here or there, but they're doing a lot of it. If anything, it should only be like about 10, maybe 20%, where maybe you're just helping the GM come up with some interesting,
or maybe they're running something that has established lore and they're having a hard time.
Well, but I think it'd be during the session though too. That'd be more like support, when you're actually
you're right,
executing, which I could see much more as well. Again, we talked about that a little bit in the last video, I believe, with the co-DMs or assistant DMs, where you can help offset some of the pressure, the load on the GM by taking, some of the NPCs or some of the other things and having some of the players run them, which, it seems, I don't know why they wouldn't have done this if they're all kind of trading up anyway, but anywho, let's continue.
Yeah, and I already get a sense that this person is a bit of a
pushover, maybe.
No, people pleaser. I wouldn't go so far to say pushover. Just that they want something to work and they're willing to put in the time for it.
That's fair.
With the assumption that everyone's going to put in that time.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's see how that works out for them.
During this time, I was working on a master's degree and trying to start a career that would come crashing down due to some issues unrelated to the story. outside of mentioning that the experience was extremely traumatic for me and put me in a bad economic position. In the last year, keeping the group together was getting difficult, and my needs, comfort, and wants were never prioritized once. I have claustrophobia, but Elle insisted playing at her house where we played in a room full of stuff from a half completed renovation where I had the choice of being squished against a wall, a couch, other players, or another wall. I brought fans, fidget toys, and played music to try to keep me calm. Eventually, she installed a ceiling fan, but complained whenever it was on too high. And so I was always on edge and nervous. I eventually got them to move into a space I was able to secure from one of my jobs, which had more room for all of us. I had a space, and we had an ADA bathroom and ramp access for one of our disabled members. Elle did not like it because it cut into our afternoon nap time. I'm
Oh
assuming because the commute
God.
was different. For most of this group's life, I would provide food, drink, treats, etc. I would spend money to get good-looking minis for them to use, etc. Then as I mentioned above, my career kind of just ended abruptly. I had no money, so I pushed that we split our snacks up. This worked for a while, at least until our snack people were asked to leave the group because Elle didn't like one of them, and she had turned the rest of the group against him. And B was becoming fairly toxic. Once they left, Elle would only bring snacks for her, but would complain if there were no chips and dip. I kid you not, she once made me go get chips because I was supposed to be the chips girl. I did it because I didn't want to create conflict, because yeah, that kind of behavior serves me well, right? So they're admitting
Uh,
that they're also at fault for giving into
I
this
mean,
person.
I'm just saying it almost I was getting a vibe right from jump when she's saying like, "Oh, I also was doing most of the prep for Z or whatever." Like it almost gives a feeling of like in high school when you have the one person who everybody just dumps their homework onto, like, do my homework for me. Like
Yeah, this sounds like someone who's very nervous and just wants everything to work,
that's what I'm saying. Like
and
I think
it
maybe
sucks.
and I'm not trying to dog on her or anything, but it sounds like she might be a bit of a doormat. Like, and I
A
get
bit.
it, you know, and I understand it again, conflict, and she just wants everybody to get along, to have fun, and to, you know, and I get it, but it definitely doesn't serve her because this group is already showing some real toxic signs. Like
Yeah.
L already with that shit, just nah, bro. I'm gonna be honest. You see, she says some stupid shit like that, I might go ahead and just slap a bitch real quick, like just on
Yeah.
principle alone.
um,
I wouldn't, but still, like
I mean, you never know.
I'd like to imagine it. You know, I mean, I'd never actually, you know, hit a woman unless they're trying to kill me. But still, like, it's just this shit is not okay at all.
I'd verbally slap someone. You
There
could put
you
it that
go.
way.
Yeah, you could
Um,
verbally slap a bitch. Why not? Sure.
I was also starting to feel unappreciated as a GM. They expected me to run it. It wasn't a, would you mind running again after this campaign wraps? It was, what's the next campaign going to be? I decided I didn't want to run D&D again. I was never a huge fan of the system, and I wanted to tell stories in not fantasy settings. Sorry. Well, Elle stated she refused to learn new systems, and she held the group hostage with her no, and the fact that she was technically host. I say technically host because I still ended up responsible for most of the hostess duties. Once I got us in the conference room, she relented there. A few weeks ago, we started a Teens in Space game. I was looking forward to running a rules light system in a sci-fi action setting. I did a bunch of world building. Elle immediately made a character who hated everything about modern living and just wanted to read books. Her character's background was that she was from a village where everyone lived like medieval peasants, and she was chosen by the village elder to go on this adventure, join the militia. Her playing in the game was, I don't know how this works, so I do nothing. TR tried to get things going, but with no one really playing off of him, there was not much to do. Enter M. L brought M into the group. M seemed like a nice guy, and he was a good RPer who was energetic for the story. However, in an after game sit and chat, M said some pretty off color things. And when he was called out, he jumped into, I didn't do anything wrong, which folded into, you have made my safe space not safe. You know, after I called him out on using ableist rhetoric and a slur. After watching him run the abuser's playbook on manipulating, I was like, nope. I told Elle I was going to ask him to leave out of politeness since she had to work with him, and then informed M he was no longer welcome at my table. Note, I did not kick him out of the group. He was not removed from the Discord, only that he was not welcome at my table anymore. If someone else ran, that was up to them. The same night that happened, the pizza affair happened. So in April, I lost one of my jobs after I
It's
gave a
fair.
speech. I know, it's so scandalous. I lost my jobs after I gave a speech critical of employers that ignored and harmed specific demographic groups. My boss took it personally and fired me. While I had 3 other jobs, none of them paid anywhere near what that one did. And I went from a comfortable income in California to $120 to $450 a month, depending on what on work available. That is not enough money to survive.
In
I
California,
That's not enough money to survive pretty much anywhere in this country.
I mean, it
I mean,
depends,
unless you
but
want to live in backwater
hey,
Mississippi.
that's what I'm saying. Like, there
But
are some
no one
spots,
wants to live
but
there, and none of them have teeth, Adam. I don't want to live near people that don't have teeth. I haven't really had money for a while. So Elle popped in her Discord and asked if anyone wanted to split some pizzas with her. I simply commented I had no funds and that I was sorry. By the time I had finished work and was getting ready to head to the game, I noticed the conversation had grown where 2 people had money, but A had offered to cover TR and L covered M. They told me that the pizza was just for them. Note, I had a multi-hour drive to get to the game. Normally I would eat on the way, but this week I knew I was not going to be able to. I knew I wasn't eating until after the game. So there I am, hungry, having not had anything to eat since 11 a.m. And there they are, chowing down on pizza that I was explicitly disallowed to eat. Then M pulled his manipulation crap. I cried myself to sleep that night. I had never felt so used in my life. No one, I mean, not a single person gave a shit about me. Years I'd covered their meals, never expecting anything in return. Every winter I would make full-blown holiday feast that would cost me hundreds of dollars and 12 to 14 hours of prep work in the kitchen. And the thanks I got was being manipulated and not being allowed to share pizza the one time I didn't manage to scrounge up some cash. But wait, there's more. TR mentioned that he would not be able to make the upcoming game. I tried to reschedule it to another day because I was excited about the next part of the story and did not want to wait for the next game session to get there. Elle said that she would not play on any other day. I was done. I was tired of Elle, tired of all the
thank you.
shit, so I just
Thank you.
posted a message. I am involved in a PhD that is taking more and more of my time. My schedule is chaotic, and I am taking gigs where I can and jumping at every networking opportunity that comes my way. My volunteer job is ramping up for a busy autumn as well. With that in mind, and the general lack of excitement for my game, I am stepping down from leading the game. Today, a post A posted how I am a terrible person, and a birdie told me how Elle has been campaigning against me the same way she did Z. They have since told me that I was never a good GM and that I have been removed from the group, which is when they realized I own the Discord and refused to hand it over to them. I had years and years of world building stuff on that thing, and I was not getting booted from the server where I stored all that. So after years of being the group mom, feeding them, cleaning up after them, they showed that their appreciation by completely shitting on me when I was in a spot of bad luck, and then insulting me when I did not do what they wanted me to do. I am bloody angry, depressed, enraged, and likely will cry myself to sleep again tonight. Ugh.
Yeah.
I
That's
hate I oof.
that story was by LeFleur Savage Gaming.
Yeah,
Uh
I gotta say, we've had some stories where I felt for the people
uh
involved. This is just
I mean, I said it
fucking
before. I
awful.
said it before, bro. I'll slap all them motherfuckers, bro. I'm not even kidding. I don't give a fuck like what's between their legs or not, or what they identify as. Like these motherfuckers. This is the kind of shit that I hate the most, bro. We're just like this is some of the most just selfish, self-centered, narcissistic bullshit. And again, in all fairness, as with every story here on Reddit, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Maybe there's two sides or sometimes even more to every story, more sides to every story. But I mean, I feel like this is probably pretty accurate. The way that they structured it, all the format, the way that they were talking, like I believe that this is the case, honestly, in a lot of ways. But that being the case, yeah. I will also say though, like OP definitely made some mistakes, like and they are clearly aware of that, where they should have dipped out of this shit way sooner. Like these
Oh,
people,
100%. And
these people already showed how utterly just garbage creatures they are pretty early on. L specifically as well. At the very least, if you didn't want to like leave the full group, get fucking get rid of L, bro. Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
she literally gets she literally gets all butthurt and has an attitude and shit when you're like, hey, can we move this space to a different spot? And she's like, well, that cuts into my afternoon nap time though. Motherfucker, what? So they clearly showing
How old are you?
you got
Like,
nothing going on.
well, not
And you're
just that.
just
It's the respect for time that you just straight up
that's,
just don't
that's what I
have.
mean though. It's like you okay, you have nothing going on that day. Good for you. But you again, are you GMing? Are you setting up? Are you doing all of this? Like I feel like
You
people
can roll out of bed and drive here, you lazy fuck.
because you're not doing anything else. You're literally
No.
coming here to have fun. You're still relaxing. You're not. You're literally chilling out with your friends the whole day. Like you're not. Like, come
Yeah.
on now. Like, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I can. It takes if you want to stay engaged and active in the game. Like, it does take your obvious focus and energy in that regard. But
Jesus. It's like it's
like,
so
and then fucking like again the nail in the coffin or the extra thing on top is like when she starts basically being like, okay, I can't do this anymore because I have a lot of stuff going on, so whatever. And then they just want to retaliate to her now because she's no longer just being the good little, you know, doormat that they can walk all over and do all the shit for them. And A is just like, you're a terrible person. And it's like,
huh?
the fuck? And then like Birdie's like, oh hey, Elle's been campaigning against you now too, the same way she did with Z to turn everyone against you. And like they're all like, oh, you were never a good GM, and we're gonna remove you from the group. And then oh, lo and behold, you dumbasses forgot she was the owner of the Discord.
Yeah,
Like
that's the shit that
that's
really got
that's
me.
how detached you all were. You weren't even aware. Like how can you be so unaware of how much someone actually contributes to something? Where you're
It's
literally just
so
like,
frustrating.
I'm gonna take away the thing you own. Oh. Hmm.
Well, that sent me. The fact that they were like, I'm not even gonna be playing this anymore, but I'm gonna keep that fucking server. The reality is like this is obviously someone who has a lot of care for others around them, and unfortunately, that was taken advantage of. And while that advantage might have been very easy because of the type of person that they are, it's just, I mean, it
I mean,
just
excuse
sucks.
their behavior at all. Like that's that like
No, but
when a person is giving and they are, generous and benevolent and like I respect OP so much because she was willing to put in real time effort and work.
like
Like
real life effort.
that shit is so rare. And to me, it's one of the most valuable things in a person. That to me is something that I will always like love and cherish about anyone who is able to do it. And the fact that people like these fucks take advantage. And yeah, again, sure, OP, she should have been able to stand her ground a bit more with everything going on. Sure. She didn't though. And overall, we could also say like maybe she shouldn't have had to in certain ways of
Oh
like
yeah.
these guys are fucking assholes. And
Yeah.
again, yeah, okay. It
I feel a lot for this because like, we all, I mean, I've been playing in groups where been the same people and we hang out outside of it. These are people who mean a lot to me. And it's one of those things where like I remember, I've always paid for D&D Beyond because it was what we used to play. But I paid the extra monthly like the yearly or monthly subscription so that everyone had access to all of the stuff I bought. And I've spent a shitload of money on D&D, more so than pretty much anyone in our group, except for the first DM that we had. And from day one, I was bringing in extra books to share with people. I was bringing in extra dice to give people or share with them, that kind of thing. And when I lost my job and was injured and I wasn't getting paid, I was getting like, basically spare change every month if I was able to help somebody or whatever. And so I couldn't afford to keep paying for it. And I messaged, like, I've gotten a call and I was very like, I did not want to have to ask this. And I was like, I'm really sorry, but can someone front me like the $7? Like, I literally didn't have $7. And, one of my friends stepped up. He's like, here's like 20 bucks. It'll cover the next 2 months at least. He's like, don't worry about it. It's okay. Like, if we have to, we'll put together the extra cash and we'll take care of it. and lucky I was able to work again. But it was that willingness to immediately, I wasn't the only one who was broke at the table,
Oh,
but immediately someone stepped in and was like, you
I
know
got
what,
you.
you're
I
right,
got
and
you.
like
Yeah.
we appreciate it.
Yeah.
So
I
don't
got you,
forget
homie.
that. Yeah,
Yeah. You
and
got, I mean, you've
that's
been doing
like
it for a long time. Like that should mean something. If you guys have been together, even if it's to play a stupid made up game of swords, spells, whatever, yeah, you guys like again, that means something. I mean,
yeah.
you should be considered friends at that point. If you're able to do this activity and this hobby that everybody loves together for years, like for literal multiple years, like they're not just strangers that you met over the internet or over some stupid whatever. Like they are your friends at that point. You've known them for a while.
Oh
You
yeah.
get together pretty consistently almost every week and stuff. Like if they're saying, hey, I'm in a bit of a tight spot right now, and especially if this is something that's like still helping to contribute to the group, even
Yeah.
I don't see like it, yeah, someone else maybe in the group should step up a little bit to be like, yeah, I absolutely, we appreciate everything you've done for now. And if there's a little bit of an issue, yeah, we can step up and start and still help to support the group. Like that's if you care about something,
Yeah.
just put in the effort. And that's the thing that, about OP that again, she clearly put, I mean, like, obviously, yeah, people can say there's such a thing as so-called too much effort. I personally, I don't like that. I don't believe there is such a thing as like, yeah, okay, trying too hard is a thing, sure, when a person, but I feel like there's a difference between trying like too hard, where it's just like, okay, you're being a bit intense. You need to kind of relax a little bit, like because it's a little maybe overwhelming in that way. But there's a difference between a person putting in legitimate, real effort, like 100%, because they care about something.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the part that like this OP should have seen way sooner than they did, how none of that care was being reciprocated.
I mean, that's
And I think
like,
that's the tough
yeah.
part.
When
That's the
she's
part that
literally
hurts.
still doing the majority of prep for Z's campaign that she's a player in, like what?
Yeah. It's
Again, like
stuff like that.
again, I'm just like, how did you even get wrapped into that? Like how was that even justified or clarified in any way? Like how I don't even know how that works. I don't like I'm sitting here, I'm wondering, I'm like, how did they get her to do their work for them on the like is this dude freaking Tom Sawyer or some shit? Like getting them
Yeah,
to
it's kind of insane.
Huckleberry Finn, getting them to paint the fucking fence for how? Oh, it's so much fun to do all this prep work. I mean,
It's
I'm
from
doing
it's
all
it,
my
he's
own
there.
prep
What
work
are they
already
just? What's his
too.
face from fucking what's that book? Catcher in the Rye. That fucking asshole.
Oh,
I can't remember his name. Where he
I
just
mean,
convinces people to do shit for him with no return
it's just like,
constantly.
yeah, it's just I don't know. Like I
Hayden?
said, like it's like it might be Hayden. Like again, it's the same shit. Yeah, Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer, getting people to like, paint the fence. It's like either way,
Yeah.
I think me and Sam can both say from the bottom of our hearts, OP, if you ever see this video, we are very sorry that happened to you, and
Yeah.
you did not deserve any of that what you got. And I will say, I just at the very least, I hope that you got some amount of enjoyment, and stimulus and happiness from this group, at least for a little while, at least, and it wasn't just all hardship, black clouds, thunderstorms, and knee scrapes, because this is pretty bad. I mean, these people just, oh God, disgust me. Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next story of the day, because we got a couple other ones that are also pretty long ones that are gonna make you have some feelings. So, moving on to the next story. This one is titled "How a Player Ruined His Friendship with Us and His Character Paid the Price" by Kooky Palpitation 43. If this isn't where we post stories, please tell me and I will happily move this to where it needs to go. I posted this to a Facebook D&D group like 4 years ago, and I noticed that one of the comments told me to post it here. So I thought, why not? Keep in mind, of course, before I start this, that this all happened over the course of 6 months. So strap in tight, because this is a long one. Side note, I am replacing everyone's names for anonymity. Cool. A bit of background. I have two very close friends. Let's call them Sarah and M. Also featured in this story is my older, military/built like Thor, brother, Dave, and my younger sister, Leora. The star of this story, however, is Ralph. Ralph became a friend of me, Sarah, and Em a few years before D&D was a bit much. He was all over the place, but he was still a good friend. Time passes, and I discovered D&D and poured countless time into becoming a GM. I made my own homebrew world and plotline, and finally, the time came to pull together a group. So I asked Sarah, Em, and Dave, which they happily came to play, and I didn't mention the game to Ralph as I wanted to start the first few sessions with a smaller group to get my bearings first. So Sarah became a human bard, Em a tiefling warlock, and Dave a dragonborn paladin. They became fast friends within the game and encountered a unicorn their second session. Ooh, fortuitous. I was excited that everyone enjoyed it and asked my sister Leora to join at the same time I asked Ralph. Leora became a human cleric, while Ralph became a half-elf ranger. Now, when I asked Ralph, he prided himself on having played D&D in the past, but fell out of it for some reason. I wouldn't have any problem with this if it weren't for the fact that he boasted 24/7 about how he knew all the rules of 5e and was a master at the game, quote unquote. Well, we all rolled our eyes and let the comments slide. At this point, I should mention that my brother Dave's character, Dash, has become the unanimous leader of the party. He's a great one, in fact, and this comes into play soon. The third session rolls around, and this time, Leora and Ralph are joining. The main party is in a tavern, about to head off to the docks for an adventure out at sea when Myra, Leora's character, walks in and introduces herself. She and Mare, Sarah's character, hit it off, and she immediately joins the group. I feel like, why, if you already gave all the people names and stuff, why give their characters different names? This feels like it's going to get a little confusing. Anyway, that's just a personal note that I had. Then Finn, Ralph's character, smashes the door open to the tavern and takes a seat at the nearest unoccupied booth, hood low over his face. The group tries to go talk to him, but Finn just decided to be dismissive and rude. Like, what the hell? Don't you want to join the party? What's going on? Finally, the group gives up on him and announces that they're going on their journey to kill a sea monster. They start to leave as Finn jumps up, bow in hand. Fighting monsters? I guess I'll join you. I've got nothing better to do. So now the party is together, and no one likes Finn. Yeah, not the best first impression, my dude. He's constantly trying to undermine Dave as the leader of the group and insulting all of the other members. Yeah. See, we even took a moment out of game to say, what the heck, dude? And he just bypassed the comment saying, it's only in the game. This is what I'm talking about. With characters like this, we talked about a character similar to this too a couple of videos ago, I believe, where it's like the drow pathfinder person or whatever, where they join like that one shot or whatever, where it's just like, why are you making a character? Again, especially if you are brand new to a group, right? You've never played the game together with people. To be fair, I guess in this case, he technically is a longer time good friend of most of the people here, but it's still just like, why are you creating an asshole in the group? What, again, unless you off the top communicate to people, hey, so I'm going to really kind of create a dude who's a bit of a douche at first, but then hopefully kind of starts to get better as time goes on, maybe becomes like a little bit more humble or progresses. Like, don't just bring a douchebag to the session and just be an asshole to people. And then because I've experienced that as well in games with people I'm playing with, where like they bring characters that are just like, they're assholes. They're just douchebags, or they're selfish and narcissistic, or they play them kind of like an idiot who's also kind of like disruptive and destructive. It's like, okay, my character is an absolute psychopath, so when he sees you doing stuff, he's not going to agree to it. He doesn't want to be involved in it. But then there's also the meta element where you're like, well, I don't want to start just like attacking, a fellow player per se, because obviously that will start to breed and generate some other kind of feelings and stuff. So then you're just like, okay, my character is not agreeing. He's going to be very resistant to this. And then it feels like, it's like, why do people do this? Why are you being fucking crazy and an asshole? what benefit do you have from this? Is this just your way of like venting out your own bullshit on people like without their consent? Come on, man.
It's very weird.
Okay. They continue on their journey, and everyone is so tense that they start taking it out on the NPCs guiding the boat.
Oh,
What? Captain Creeley became a hated character because the party was so upset about Finn, which is understandable. Creeley was an acquired taste. Okay, so you made Creeley also an asshole, then, I assume by that. During this time, Finn tried to kill the captain because she refused to pay the group until after they killed the sea monster. So yeah, the time on the boat was tense. 1 month, real time later, Ralph has stopped his character's insulting and only did it occasionally if someone upset him. Okay. He stopped blatantly trying to undermine Dave's character's authority and just tried to avoid him. He still never followed orders, however, but I will say, though, Ralph only stopped undermining Dave's character because my brother intimidated him out of game. Okay. Dave is built like a beast and straight up told Ralph to stop while towering over him. I know my brother would never actually hurt him. He's too much of a sweetheart, but that's what really got Ralph off his case. At this point, Ralph would roll dice for everything, like sitting in a freaking chair. I told him they didn't have to, but of course he wouldn't listen. He nat 20'd sitting in a chair and asked Sarah if her character, Mare, fell in love with him. Sarah was teasing and asked his charisma score, 17 or something. They ended up mutually deciding to have an in-character romance. Why? Why would you do that? Why?
no way.
You see, like, again, you realize his behavior, right? Maybe with a 17 charisma, maybe he's sexy and hot as fuck for sure. Let me tell you, bro, don't never stick your dick in crazy and never let a crazy dick stick in you, okay? Just don't do it. Just don't do it. What are you doing? Out of game. Ralph and Sarah started dating a few days after this. You're doing this. But then broke up about 2 months in. There you go. See, what do you expect? They kept up the in-game romance.
Wrong, incorrect decision.
What is happening? This is like a speed run. This is a speed run of horrible, stupid, bad decisions from bad to worst. Like
this is why I included this one.
What is this? What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh my God. How old are these people? They've got to be like, this is like high school shit, right? Like, come on, man. Please tell me. It's still stupid of stupid, but still, at least they'd have far more of a reason and a oh God, holy shit. Okay. Okay, so they kept up the in-game romance, but Sarah was starting to get uncomfortable with the in-game flirting because he was starting to take it out of game. Who could have foreseen that? Which she told me near the end of our 6-month campaign. Anyways, we were nearing the end of our campaign. At this point, everyone had accepted Finn into the group. Have ya? Yes, he was still grouchy, but ultimately he had stopped insulting and trying to become the leader.
Well, look, growth.
Or just much more subtle, or just bored, or just more subtle planning, you know, just more like playing the long game, you know, waiting for your chance to come initially, because he knows like all of his other attempts have done nothing up to this point. Okay. Yes, he was still grouchy, but ultimately he had stopped insulting and trying to become the leader. He became fun-ish to play with at the end, except he always asked if they leveled up after each session, and then would battle me if I said they didn't. I was irritated with him constantly, but that's because he thought he knew the rules more than me and would debate everything I said. Of note, during the campaign, Leora's character died and she became an Aasimar druid. She had a bark worse than her bite and would stand for what she believed was right. She did find humor whenever her party members fell or tripped, but if they were super injured, she would stop laughing and go help. Okay. The final session came and the group finally completed their mission. Campaign over. Finn and Mare got married in game. Out of game, Dave left the group after this to spend time with his wife, and we all understood. I mean, I feel like he just used that as an excuse to not have to fucking deal with Finn and his bullshit anymore, but you know.
I don't know. If I was Dave, I would have just taken that guy with me. Just put him up, just fire, just like,
all right, we're
You're
both
leaving.
leaving now. Yep. As I talked to Sarah about the next campaign, we decided to continue from where their characters left off. Everyone wanted to play their previous characters except for Ralph. Why? You finished. You guys had you have your thing. Like, do you don't want to try something else? Like,
I feel the same way.
why? I mean, again, it's one thing if it's like you play these characters and like the campaign gets cut short and you didn't have like a resolution to their
There's
story.
a resolution,
But if you literally finish the campaign, their characters got married. Like you have all of this shit. Like why would you want to
just why?
Yeah, do something else. Like what's happening here? Okay. So Ralph changed to a dwarf cleric, much to everyone's joy. Yeah. Sarah was ecstatic because now she wouldn't have to pretend to be in love with Finn and wouldn't have to face his flirting. Maybe Ralph's new character would be nicer. Why don't you? You also could have avoided that by just changing your character. What are you talking about? Just change your character. Wrong! Ralph's character was not nicer. He was just as much of a jerk, if not more so. Of course he was. He tried to prove he was better than everyone else and kept a grudge book. Why are you still playing with him? Why are you still allowing this? He would write down someone's name if they insulted him, even if they didn't intend it to go that way. At this point, we were all ticked off with Ralph. Why the heck is he being so awful to everyone? Out of game, Ralph was going to be moving away partway through the campaign, and we were all eagerly awaiting the day. In game, Liara's character, Annam, would tease the members of their party. That's just how she showed her friendship. Now, everyone loved it, or so we thought. Ralph had been smiling every time she teased him, saying nothing, and writing her name in his grudge book. At this point, the party just enters the abyssal plane. Ooh, scary. During this time, about 4 sessions in, Ralph, out of game, tells me he wants to switch back over to playing his old character, Finn. I tell him no, because story-wise, it doesn't make any sense that Finn would show up in the abyssal plane when he has 2 kids at home to take care of. What about his wife? Why isn't she helping him with that? Also, he already gave the rights of the character to me.
Yeah.
Furthermore, Sarah is super uncomfortable with him playing Finn and continuing to flirt with her through him. Okay. I feel like... I'm getting to that point now where I'm like, nobody in this story is innocent, really. Everybody kind of sucks a little bit. Some maybe more than others here or there, but okay. Of course, Ralph blows up at me saying that he is going to kill off his dwarf character right at the start so he can play Finn. I tell him that if he does that, I will give him a Phrygian character instead. He then refuses to speak to me until the next session and spams the group text with fake messages such as, hey guys, the GM said we're all level 15s now, or I'll be playing Finn for my final session. Can't wait. I told all of the members that this is fake and that you guys are still level 11s and Ralph will be playing his dwarf, yada yada. Why are you still playing with him?
I know, it's like, just kill him and leave him there.
Like, let him kill his character off and then be like, well, you can't play with us anymore. Bye.
Bye.
Like, so his final session rolls around and first thing he says is, so I'm playing Finn, right? I say no because of X, Y, Z, and he humps and sits, and I think she meant to say harumps and sits down.
Or huffs.
Maybe huffs, yeah. M couldn't make this session, so it was just me, Ralph, Sarah, and my younger sister, Leora. The game begins. Why are you doing this? Ralph is pissed the entire session and counters everything I say. No shit. The group starts talking to a golden dragon as he goes and investigates this river that hurts you if you touch it. He gets hurt, takes it out by attacking the dragon. He rolls for attack/damage, and everyone is so angry at Ralph. What did you expect? Sarah sighs and asks if we roll for initiative. I say no. You shoot out your Blight Ray. Kind of a cool attack name, not going to lie. And it bounces off of his scales. He missed. The dragon swats at you with a paw, and you hit your head on a rock. Con save. He fails and falls unconscious. A blissful 5 minutes pass. Why didn't you just kill him? Why? If you're just gonna hand wavy, basically be like, this happens to you. Da 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 da. Why are you still? Then out of game, Ralph goads Leora into dropping his hand into the pain river. Her character doesn't know that it hurts people, and he out of game is promising that it would be funny. Out of game, Sarah and I tell Leora that it's a bad idea. We can already tell that Ralph has a plan. Obviously. How would Leora not know that if he's speaking to her out of game about this? Leora can tell him out of game that she knows the river hurts him. Why would her character... Leora drops his hand in the river, and Ralph's character takes 5 points of damage to his massive pool of 150 HP. He wakes up and starts screaming at Leora's character. This is the last straw! He then proceeds to attack my sister, almost killing her character in one blow. You know what? Good, because I'm going to say she deserved it because she was a freaking idiot. I really do not have time or pay. Like, that is just the stupid... Like, I honestly... I found her sister's character to be kind of questionable as well, because she keeps saying, like, oh, her sister's character, like, laughs at people's misfortunes, or she kind of pranks and messes with them and stuff. Everybody loved it, though, and it's like...
It's all good.
I don't know, man. I don't know. This again. I feel like maybe you might have like a little slightly biased opinion maybe towards her, just a bit. I don't know about that. Regardless, this is also still it was stupid of her to do this. I do not have tolerance for stupidity. So you know what? Yeah, fine. She's now reduced to 8 HP. Sarah runs in and tries to stop him. He goes to attack again. I stop him, and out of game say, you cannot attack players. This is my game, and I won't allow you to attack anyone anymore because that's a jerk move. Sarah sides with me. He says, well, I've got motive. He shows his grudge book that has her name written down at least 6 times. Everyone is upset.
The grudge book is from like a completely different...
And I say that's not an excuse. I mean, well, it's not. It's like, okay, you have a grudge book, and he's clearly taking... You know, every time she teases him or whatever, which to be fair, you know, I don't know what kind of, again, teasing she's doing, and it could very well be annoying or frustrating if she's just kind of like, you know, oh, hey, I'm going to insult you or mess with you or screw with you or whatever constantly. And it's like, all right, can you just stop?
I will say,
stop?
as sad as this is, if you're going off of the grudge book that I think he's going off of, which is the Dao Way from Warhammer Fantasy, because they couldn't be dwarfs. Like they couldn't be dwarves because that's copyright. So they're dwarfs with a WFS.
Yeah, WFS.
And they also go by Dao Way. That is how fucking persnickety those grudges are. Is like literally someone said something about your mother 80 years ago, and you are like, you're going to die.
Yep.
Eventually, I will get you one day.
Yeah,
that is how ridiculous
I shall remember that, and I will keep it in my tome forever.
If like he's doing it right, but why would you do this? Why would you include this in your character? This is a terrible character idea, in terms of how you are now going to interact with everyone in the party.
I mean, because he's like that in real life. He absolutely keeps these grudges and these slights and these insults, and he shall have his vengeance. But, you know, everyone says no, and he gets all butthurt about it, no doubt. But let's see what happens, you know? So, after he shows the grudge book and has her name written down at least 6 times, everyone is upset, and I say that's not an excuse. Ralph attempts to attack again. I have the dragon swat him again, and he falls unconscious. Why don't you just kill him? Just kill his character and have him leave. Why are you still just going with this? Where is the logic? Where is the intelligence? Like, I'm telling you, these people, they have to be children, right? They have to be like 16, 17, something, right? Like maybe even 15, maybe even younger, you know, because this is just like all of this, even freaking Ralph spamming the chat with all of that stupid, petty, immature bullshit messages like, hey guys, Ian said we're all level 15s now, or I'll be playing Finn for my final session, right? Can't wait. I'm playing Finn, right? Like, how fucking juvenile can you be, my dude? Are you just shooting out of your mama's coochie now? Right? What's happening? Like, oh my God. Okay. All right. Ralph attempts to attack again, knocks him unconscious, yada yada. Sarah pleads with the dragon, and plot stuff happens. They leave Ralph's character asleep and are given a potion to wake him up whenever they want. Why would you ever want to? Just kill him at this point. Or leave him asleep forever. Out of game, Leora goes upstairs for a few minutes to calm down. She's not angry. She was just upset and nearly in tears. Well, you know, Don't be an idiot. I'm sorry. It's just like what like mm. Unless okay. I'm a rogue free agent, right? I'm letting everybody get it right now. This is not okay. All right. I was ready to kick Ralph out of my house right there and then. So I hate you. But it was his last time being over at my house, and I stupidly allowed him to stay. The rest of the night was awful because of Ralph, and afterwards I refused to be in any contact with him. I guess better late than never, but not really though. My sister was crying by the end of the night, and he refused to stop being a jerk. This is how he ruined his friendship with us. Okay. The next session, M comes back, and Sarah and Leora share their story of that night. M was ready to punch something. I was profusely apologizing for allowing him to stay. You should. Although also, I don't know why they didn't say something. It's her house too. They like just have him leave. What? God. Okay. Okay. Anyways, the game starts as the group is still in the abyssal plane. The group decided to continue to let the dwarf Matic that Ralph played tag along until they got back to the material plane. So they do a bunch of stuff heading down to the 7th layer and finally make their way back up to the 3rd layer. This was a homebrew game. So the 3rd layer was the domain of the Great Mother. The walls and ceilings were covered in eyeballs that followed their movements, and the entire area was one giant maze full of monsters. When they finally make it through the maze and get to the Great Mother, they're exhausted. They meet the Great Mother, a towering, godly woman who is blind, save for 6 hands that each have an eye in their palm, and attempt to strike a deal with her to leave the abyssal plane. It's a pretty cool description. I gotta give her credit. It was nice. This was just plot stuff. Okay. The Great Mother asked what they would offer her in return for her services. M begins to step forward with her character, saying that when she dies, she'll become a servant of the Great Mother. Sarah's character, Mare, has an in-game hatred of people close to her selling their souls because of backstory stuff. So while M is speaking, Sarah falls behind Ralph's character and knocks him out with the hilt of her rapier. She stops M and turns to the Great Mother. We offer this servant instead immediately. You may use him however you wish, and he will serve you. Thank you.
Oh, I like that.
Finally, someone using their goddamn brains in this thing. Holy shit, like literally. Serve him up on a platter. Why wouldn't you? He's essentially got no brain or mind anymore since his player is no longer present. So send him off. He's been an asshole this whole time. He has a grudge against literally all of you in the party that he will eventually collect on. Give him away. Now, at this point, the whole table was shocked when she did that. But she almost immediately turned their gazes to me to see what happened. Pure glee on their faces. And what would be the fate of Ralph's character? The one who attacked our party verbally and physically, put us through months of hurt and horror, and made the game unbearable while he was with us? Well, he was going to get his justice. I describe as a monster dragged him forwards, and the Great Mother hovered her hands over his face. There's a ripping noise accompanied by his screams of pain as his eyes were ripped from his sockets and then placed on the wall beside the Great Mother. The character writhed on the ground, and the monster dragged him through a hidden passage. Then the Great Mother looked to the players, a wicked smile on her face as she said, "We'll make use of him."
Ooh.
The whole group actually cheered. We had to take a few minutes away from the game to talk excitedly about what happened and to forget the horrors of Ralph. In the end, we all had a lot of regrets, but ultimately believe that this was a great experience. We had to deal with a troubled player, and now we know different ways to combat it. We can start to recognize the signs faster, and we are not going to deal with anyone like that ever again. Now, don't get me wrong, we did have some fun moments with Ralph as well. We look back on a lot of the memories we have in the campaign with him and smile. The problem became worse when the good outweighed the bad. We could only think of the horrible things he did because he did them far more frequently than any fun things. Exactly. If there is ever a troublesome player in your group, talk with them individually and, if necessary, the whole group. If the player won't stop their behavior, then you're going to have good players that don't want to play and will leave your game. Sometimes it's better to get rid of the root by asking the troubled player to leave the game if they don't stop their behavior. What do you mean sometimes? That's usually the go-to thing to do if that situation ever occurs. My players were awesome for sticking through that, but I wish they didn't have to. I should have talked to Ralph, and he should have cleaned up his act. Thus is the way of hindsight, though. Anyways, thanks for reading my story, and hopefully this will never happen in one of your guys' campaigns. End post. Fuck me, dude. Jesus Christ.
That's awesome.
I mean, all right, look, like God, like I have such a hard time with these sometimes because it's just like, yeah, hindsight is 2020 and all of that, but I don't even understand. Like, even in hindsight, like during the thing, you guys were having a terrible time with this guy. Your brother literally needed to apparently, quote unquote, threaten him to get him to fucking fall in line at all. And you better believe as soon as he left, and oh, he's just here with a bunch of girls now. Like you really think he's not gonna immediately go back to his old ways now that he no longer feels the potential threat of physical violence from a person who's just physically more dominant than him?
I wish I was physically intimidating. That'd be cool.
I mean, you definitely have your abilities, Sammy. I mean, you're not a small dude, you know. You got that you got the height and the bulk to kind of intimidate some people, you know, like especially if it's like a little pissant like this. Like, let's be honest, just about probably any other guy there would be enough to intimidate him. But he's also so fucking has his head shoved so far up his ass that he can't realize that those girls would probably beat the shit out of him too if he really started stepping on the line. From the sounds of it, seems like M absolutely could have kicked his ass too. She was like she wanted to punch something. Either way, he definitely is just like this dude. And again, I get it. You know, you let him join. He's your friend, but apparently he's a douchebag in game. And we've talked about this before. Just because you might be friends with somebody out of game, although I will also put a stipulation with this too. But just because you're friends with somebody out of game doesn't mean that they are a good fit to play TTRPGs with, or any RPGs with, for that matter. However, I will stipulate though, if you're friends with them out of game and they start acting like a certain way in game that's shitty or less than savory, might be something to think about there because it's a weird thing, isn't it? It's a weird kind of dichotomy to be like, why are you acting this way in the game? Because this is a fantasy game, right? You want to play a person or do things that you can't normally do otherwise. So why are you acting this way in game? What you got going on in that little noggin of yours that's making you want to take this opportunity now with your friends, or at least a group of people that you mutually want to have fun with playing a game with, and you're going to start acting like this? Like, and if a person doesn't act like this outside of the game, I feel like that gives a little bit of an indicator that they're like, okay, so you're aware that acting like this outside of the game would be detrimental to you in terms of, you know, maybe your social acceptance or success, but you're gonna act like this in the game, believing you're gonna have a different outcome. There's gonna be a different reaction in the game. Because you believe that the GM is supposed to cater to your fantasy or what you want, and then like no matter what you decide to do, that you'll always succeed. Like what? Again, I don't know. I've always found the prospect fascinating for how people act in the game, right? I think a commenter said in a different video a while ago, like it's a great litmus test, right? Might be a great litmus test in this regard as well, to basically be like, hey, how does this person play in a D&D game? You know, if they're your friends here, they're having a great time, okay. Let's see how they respond here when you're literally placed in an imaginative, fantastical realm where literally your imagination is basically the limit. Not entirely, of course, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but practically there are some ground rules you have to follow, but within that, imagination is the limit. I don't know. What do you think, bud? What are your thoughts on this thing here?
Again, we run into this constantly of people who just really shouldn't be allowed to continue at a game. Like, this person should not have been allowed to stick at this table for as long as they did. And while I give the DM props for admitting, you know, what they fucked up on, and also admitting that there were, you know, some good that came of it, some things that they still enjoyed.
Oh,
like, I'll give them credit for
sure.
that. But
I mean,
just
just statistically speaking, it's likely.
yeah, it's just like fuck. This is it's.
I mean, I
Come on.
lost my shit when Sarah literally was like, after all, like, no one likes Finn. And yet, literally, it was like, oh, you know what? Okay, I'll get into an in-game romance with this character that everybody hates and that my character hates too. Like, sure. And then they start dating out of character, out of game for real. Like, break up 2 months later, and then still continue to not only play the game together, but are still keeping an in-game character relationship.
Yeah, that part's wild to me.
Oh my god! Like at that point, that's when I lost all hope or real like sympathy or empathy for this group at that point, because that, like I said, they have to be like 14, 15, 16. They have to be, because nobody, like, I don't care who you like you. Oh God. That's just, again, unless you're like an actual professional like actor where you're like, you maybe you're on set, filming for either a movie or a show, you end up engaging with some of your co-stars or whatever, it kind of falls through. It's like, okay, in that case, you kind of still have to, knuckle down and do your job as a professional to, like, keep acting like a love interest with this person or whatever, because that's the job. But for this, like, why? And then she's literally like, oh, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable with this. But you still kept it. Why didn't you just break up in the game too? Why didn't you just separate? Like, because again, another thing too being is like, at the end of it, when they're literally like, hey, let's all play the same exact characters again. Now, just like, okay, I can maybe see wanting to play the same characters again if maybe your campaign ended really quickly, maybe, and you were like still a low level, perhaps. Like if you like ended the campaign at like level 6, maybe even 7. It was like, it was a short, low level campaign. You're like, well, I still want to play this character and I want to get to higher levels to, have more abilities. I could maybe see that then. Like if that's a scenario that they did here, where they're just like, oh hey, because when they were playing as those characters, they got up to level 11, apparently. So that's pretty high. So I assume that they were probably still a lower level before then.
Yeah.
So I could maybe see that. But even then, I'm still just like, if you were so concerned about having to deal with Ralph's bullshit, more like weird in-game flirtation still, why would you choose to play the same character if he also had the option to play the same character? Like, then you'd have to do it. Then you'd have to deal with it again, wouldn't you? Apparently you got married to him.
Yeah, that's the like the
and had children
you're
with
almost
him.
like you're almost like increasing the odds that this person is going to continue to be a problem by cementing him in your world, because that's just it's just such a poor decision.
Like the only way I could possibly forgive so much of this shit is if they were literally children, as if they were all like, again, 14, 15, 16. If you're like 17 above, though, I'm like, like even then I can give you maybe some leeway. But even then, I'm like, you should have had some backbone here. Like this was some clear fucked upness that just, God damn it. Jesus. Sorry. Any other thoughts you have, Sammy?
No, that's all I got for this, I think.
Oh my good God. Literally the top voted comment says, pro tip, never solve out of game issues in game. It never works out well. Like,
no, it really doesn't.
If another pro tip, if at any point in your games, GMs or even players, that like if something has gotten so bad that a GM is literally like willing or even forced to just do some hand wavy bullshit where they're just like, the dragon slaps you, and you don't take damage, but you hit your head and you fall unconscious. Like if you're getting to the point where it's basically the equivalent of rocks fall, everybody dies, but maybe not doing that, but it's still basically that. You have a problem that you should probably handle outside of the game at that point. At that point, you should have a conversation with whoever is the problem, maybe even the whole group, to be like, hey, so this is some shit that we need to handle because yeah, not gonna work. Not good at all. Like, I don't know, man. Just Ralph's clearly got a lot of issues and problems that he needs to work on. He's clearly an incredibly insecure individual who apparently needs to again win at D&D to feel better about himself. Again, I don't know how he was outside of the game to make you guys apparently like him as a good friend, but oh man, seems weird to me. Anyway, let's move on to the next story of the day. Go ahead and take it away, Sammy.
Yeah, I have a shorter one here. Player wants more from DM. There's an edit at the beginning. I just want to say I genuinely appreciate all the thoughtful comments you posted. +1 to you all. This isn't exactly a horror story, but I've been on this subreddit for a few years and I feel like some of you might help. I joined an ostensibly good game, homebrew with an interesting world and plot, along with quality players who genuinely enjoy RP. Sounds like you got something that is rare among many instances of this game. Good for you.
Honestly, very well done.
I know, honestly. Problem one, I've played a bunch of TTRPGs, and I feel like 3 to 4 hours is the norm for a game session. Our first session started 30 minutes late, as the DM prepared his notes and ended after 2 hours of play. First session, I fully understand. I know the nerves a DM experiences in the first session, but this became the norm, consistently starting 20 to 30 minutes late, while players sat about making chit-chat and rarely going past 2 hours. Our last session was called after an hour of play. For context, we played 7 sessions now, and while we do a lot of roleplay, we're still level 2, our starting level. Naturally, this has had an effect. Players started posting in the Discord that they'll be 15 minutes late, 30 minutes late. One player passive-aggressively asked the DM to ping him when the game started. For me, I genuinely appreciate the DM running this game for us, but I also feel it's a bit disrespectful of our time. Problem 2. The DM regularly cancels games with a variety of excuses. While reasonable, it is to the point where if we play one week, there's certain to be a cancellation the following week. The asshole part of me wants to make a bingo card of what the excuse will be this time. Sick, power outage, family commitment, cat stuck in a tree, needs rescue. I've played enough TTRPGs to know this will have a cascading effect. To date, no one has really said anything during the session or in Discord. We're all online strangers to one another. Although player discontent is palpable, one player audibly sighed when the DM ended the 1 hour session. It is only a matter of time, I believe, before players start canceling. A player dips the game altogether and the game collapses, which is what I don't want. I know communication is the key, but I'm struggling with the phrasing, with how to bring this up. In general, I'm a blunt, direct person, and I prefer others are blunt and direct with me. But frankly, my experience has taught me that other people don't respond well to this.
Yeah.
I don't want to, won't jeopardize the game, but I feel if I or someone doesn't say something, the end is inevitable.
Absolutely. You have to do something. Otherwise, you see the trajectory it's going. Like,
How do you say to a DM, we really enjoy your game and appreciate your time, but we need you to be more prepared and more reliable? I.e., we need more of you? Or am I just being totally unreasonable and should take what I can get? Yeah. Now, I've had these feelings before of a DM not really respecting, the time commitment that players make. Because I get it, a DM has a lot more work to put in. That's just the reality. But players still have work to put in. It's coming up with their stories, actively role-playing their characters, making strategical decisions and playing the game attentively. And if your players are doing that, if they're putting in the work to roleplay, if they're putting in the work to be a part of the session, and as a DM, you turn around and be like, all right, we're going to go for an hour and a half today, and every other week is, oh, I can't play because of this thing I should have told you about 2 weeks ago. You know, it's one thing if you are told ahead of time that people won't be available, or you know, if something is actually an emergency. But if it's just bullshit because you're too lazy or absent-minded to let us know, that would
Or
piss me off.
or
That
if
would piss me off.
you don't want to play every week for whatever
Yeah.
reason. It's like, okay, like Sammy just said. Like in hell, even how a lot of the comments down here are saying this shit too. It's just like, look, just be honest. Okay? It's not rocket science. In this particular instance, it shouldn't even be that hard because ironically, saying this up front and being honest and communicative would probably be overtly better than sitting here trying to pretend and put up this preamble about how you might want to run the game one way, but then you're not actually doing that. People are having expectations here. And if those expectations are consistently falling through and not being met, they're going to be feeling disappointed, which is going to have a negative effect on the game. So again, if this GM, for whatever reason, you know what, they do not, they are not obligated or required to give an explanation for why they cannot necessarily run a session every single week. Just say, hey, let's do it bi-weekly then, you know?
Yeah.
And if, because again, here's the thing. If you did it bi-weekly and you told players that that was the plan, they could potentially then join maybe another D&D game where they could play bi-weekly or something. They would be able to potentially set up something else where they could maybe get their D&D fix. If they're wanting something more consistent every week, they would then be given freedom to have options to remedy the frustration and the lack of satisfaction. This GM, again, apparently OP says that, you know, it's ostensibly a good game. It's homebrewed with an interesting world and plot, along with quality players who genuinely enjoy RP. That's very rare. Maybe I shouldn't say very, but still, it is. There are plenty of bad groups as well. And so when you find a good group, you absolutely should do your best to keep it together, to hold on to it, to have a great time. And the issue being is if the GM is not being respectful of the player's time and commitment and just letting them know, hey, stop starting 20 to 30 minutes early. If it's going to take you, if you know it's going to take you 20 to 30 minutes to set up, GM, you get there earlier then. Like, or set up like, you know, because I've done that before too. I've been a professional GM where, you know, you have a start time and an end time, but pretty, you know, consistently. And it's like, okay, get on there earlier, make prep. Like, this isn't, again, it's not rocket science. It's very just clear cut, just time management. And I know some people are just, for whatever reason, they are horrendous at managing time. They just can't get their shit together in managing their time. I don't know why. I don't understand it. Quite frankly, I think it sucks. I also hate it quite a lot. It just kind of sucks. You know, but it's like that again. Like I don't know. I have a hard time myself coming up with an excuse or a fair reason for, like, you know, you don't know what's going on in his life, of course. You don't know what's going on. But the GM should also have the consideration to inform his players, hey, realistically, this is kind of what I'm only really able to do now at this point. Instead of consistently, again, setting their expectations up to be this and then constantly falling short. Like, that just sucks. That's a shitty thing to do. And OP, for you, I would 100% say, like, yeah, you know what? I am also very much a person. I vastly prefer more being direct, blunt, and you know, yeah, just straight up about some shit. But like you, I also agree and understand that a lot of people, hell, like we read in these stories, they avoid confrontation in any way, shape, or form, even when it's not like hostile or like, you know, whatever, or negative. They still avoid it because it's still uncomfortable. Being kind of put on the spot to basically express yourself and what you're feeling, just kind of unabashedly without a filter, like, it can be uncomfortable for a lot of people. And so a lot of the time they don't respond super well to someone just immediately being like, hey, what's up? What's going on? Talk to me. What's up? Like, even though ironically it would be the most efficient and effective way to probably handle some shit, but
communication?
just straight up communication. Straight up honest communication. But a lot of people are terrified of that and have no idea how to do that, well or really at all. But yeah, for this, it is just aggravating. And I will say, like, it definitely doesn't feel great when not just your GM, because like you said, with this, it also has a thing of like, you're going to have players that are going to start canceling, and then one player might dip altogether. Like, I think, like, recently, actually, there was a player in one of the games I was playing in who they left the game, but they said apparently they had a power outage, but then we saw on Discord that they were apparently playing Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, that's happened in my group before.
And they just never came back to the session at that point. Like, they just like, and this player also has a tendency to just kind of not engage at all with much of anything that's happening. Like, they're very, back of the line. Like, they don't, like, unless you kind of force them to engage and interact, they don't really do anything. Like, they don't, unless they're in combat and stuff, like, they're not much of a role player.
Well, that's a player that's okay to lose.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly what the GM's gonna do about it. I asked him if he's gonna talk with them about it, and he said, yeah, he will. But and the GM definitely has also been he's definitely a person that doesn't appreciate or like when people aren't really being consistent or respectful about time and stuff. Sometimes maybe even to an extreme extent, but at the same token, it's like, all right, yeah, I mean, it sucks when people are kind of being dismissive or disregarding or inconsiderate of your time, because everyone doing this was an agreed upon commitment. And if you can't do it anymore, if there's an issue, you got to tell people, you got to communicate with any kind of commitment thing. It's just how it should be. But either way, any other thoughts or comments you have on this one, Sammy?
No, I think it's all good stuff.
All right, then let's move on to the next story. Another not quite as long one. This one is titled "Gritty Realism is Becoming Code for Bad D&D to Me" by Cornholio8675. Great name. So this has been, this actually comes as a bit of a meta discussion that I believe they also reposted here in Horror Stories. So this has been kind of an overarching problem for me trying to find a regular D&D group online. I've played a bunch of Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, and even Paranoia. I have no issues with a challenging game or even a game where death is frequent. Too easy can be just as boring as too hard, and D&D does tend to skew too easy. That being said, I've been trying to find a regular group of players online. I really miss TTRPGs when I don't have a group. And recently I moved very far from my home, and my forever GM has taken 3 jobs trying to get a career as a writer off the ground. Whew. Excuse me. So they have no time for D&D anymore. I've noticed that just about every group I find online that isn't pay or pay to play, has gritty realism as one of the campaign features. I hate that. I hate it so much. I have had bad experiences with almost every one of these that I've tried. It seems to be people who think they can fix D&D, and the games always wind up slow, tedious, feel unfair, and are just full of high player turnover. Because most gritty realism is completely counter to the entire point. Never mind. We'll talk about that afterward. Well, our story begins with being asked by a friend of a friend of Well, our story begins with being asked by a friend of a friend to join their group. There we go. My brain kind of just skipped for a second. I had played a different TTRPG with the GM, and he was fun as a player. Session 0 goes off well, and it sounds like a rules as written standard D&D campaign. Joy! Well, a few months go by, and I've taken a note of a few trends that I can't unsee. First off, our GM rolls a fantastical amount of crits. It'd become a bit of a running gag at the table, in fact. Second, my AC base character, 22 AC monk, seems to be eating almost every attack, and the damage is actually quite high, usually about 2/3 of my base hit points. As such, there's a trend of whoever makes it into melee first goes down, usually in the first or second round of combat. Jesus. No characters have died, though, and dice do sometimes do very funny things. We end up having to long rest right after just about every fight. And I think we didn't long rest twice in a few months of play. I think we didn't long rest twice. I'm not entirely sure what he's trying to say. I think he's trying to say that they have long rested at least twice, like every fight or every session. In a few months of play.
Probably every session.
Yeah, I think he's basically just saying like there wasn't one session where they haven't had to long rest like
more than once.
Yeah, more than once, I assume. Because I was gonna say normally a long rest you do at least long rest at least once per session. Normally, just even if you don't have a fight, you just go to sleep and you long rest. There also seems to be something going on with control spells and stealth. Every enemy spots stealthing characters every time. Stun punch, hold person, command, and AoE stun punch. I do kind of like the
stun punch.
Stun punch is pretty good. I might have to use that. Stun punch, stunning strike is what I believe he's referring to, but I love stun punch more. And AoE spells like fireball are resisted 100% of the time. Cool. Every time our wizard tries to scout with his hawk familiar, stun punch. It gets spotted. I think he meant to say shot at, and every enemy in the area goes into ambush mode. Finally, I private called the GM after the game. After a long enough period of time, I started to tally attacks, crits, hits, and misses. Enemies hit at a rate of 95% regardless of PCAC. The PCs are averaging 2 crits a session. The GM is averaging 8. Once it went as high as 14. Stealth has never worked on anything. Neither has a single control spell. Every combat is a dull DPS race and ends the same way. One PC is always down by the time the party kills the bad guys. Doesn't matter if it's goblins or a big bad. You guessed it. D&D is too easy and too much of a power fantasy, and we are playing with homebrewed, gritty realism rules. Every enemy has pack tactics or other abilities that allow forever advantage, and monster stat blocks are being buffed so that things have a +2 hit in the teens, basically outscaling the PC with the highest AC at all times. Control spells trivialize the game, so they are really hard to pull off, and the GM has been fudging rolls against them so that combats are more fun. Apparently, really hard means never. Nobody has ever made or was ever made aware of any of this and just had to figure it out on our own. Needless to say, this is absolutely killing my interest in the game. No shit. He literally admitted he's blatantly cheating at this point. He straight up is. Like he's critting almost 14 times a session. Holy shit. He's not allowing any control spells to work. Your AC is essentially null and void, has no bearing or place anywhere. Like, this is just... We've talked about this before. We've said it a billion times, and we'll say it a trillion more times. Hard difficulty does not automatically equate to making the game more fun. How many times must people say this? Just because something might be harder doesn't mean it is more fun, okay? In fact, if some shit is bullshit, it's usually not fun. Unless, of course, you also have some bullshit shit that you can use that does work. That's the point of that. If you're gonna throw some bullshit, you better be willing to give some bullshit and have some bullshit. That is how that should work. Again, we talked about that, I think, in another video where it's like this archdevil or whatever had the ability to like mass charm enemies around him, right? If you were like, say, level, 6 or 6, like 6 to 8, and you're fighting an archdevil, you're probably stupid to do that anyway. You probably shouldn't be fighting an archdevil. This is an archdevil, so he's gonna have some bullshit powers. That's their thing. They're archdevils. It's literally their thing. So you should be fighting them at a low level. If you're fighting them at a high level, like at level 16, it's okay for the archdevil to have some bullshit because you also will have a lot of bullshit at that point too to use. So turnabout's fair play at that point. Point with this is like this GM, literally the top voted comment, which has 264 upvotes, is, yeah, leave that game. DM is a prick. Short, sweet, and simple. Like, literally, this GM is an absolute asshole. Now, to be fair, okay, here's the thing, right? I'm going to maybe say a bit of a hot take here, maybe a bit of a controversial statement here. Okay, just bury yourselves, get ready, prep. I don't think that fudging rolls every now and then as a GM is a bad thing. I don't think that, again, just simply like, I don't think dice fudging or fudging rolls is just inherently or intrinsically a bad thing all the time. If you are the GM, 100%, yes, your job is to make sure the game is fun for you, for your players. And sometimes the dice will get in the way of that. And so sometimes the dice should be disregarded, in my opinion. Again, I know, hot take, real controversial, that's heavy. I know not everybody is going to agree with me on that. And there'll be plenty of people who will argue with me on that. Doesn't matter. I still stand by it no matter what, is that sometimes it is better to direct the game to what will be more fun for everyone. And not necessarily just what was rolled. This, however, is a perfect example of the shitty way to do that. This GM is clearly only taking into account his own personal desire, not even necessarily about making the game more fun, but by making shit more fun for him. This is clear player versus GM mentality, which was never fun for anyone ever. He is abusing his power in the worst way possible, instead of abusing his power in the best way possible, Oh, hey, this NP or this player character, gets this really cool moment where they want to pull like this super badass ancient mythic weapon from a stone or somewhere else, right? And they're like, all right, give me a check to see if you can do it. Doesn't matter what he rolls, let him do it. If he rolls a nat 1, be like, okay, because of your intrinsic tie to this, you actually get advantage to the roll. If it's another nat 1, then it's just like, you're like, all right, well, give it a try, see what happens. Or even do it in a funny way, right? Be like, you pull this weapon from the stone, but as soon as you do it, you slip a bit, it flies up in the air, and it kind of like conks you on the head or whatever for a second, dealing whatever. So you pull it from the stone, but it was just a funny little way that it happened. You didn't do it in a really epic kind of way, like still allow them to do the thing though that they need to do to accomplish it. Like it's okay. It really is. All right. I have always hated how people just want to be like, we live by the die roll and die by the die roll, bar none for sure. Like, sure, you can do that, but here's the thing. If people just have inherently shitty dice rolls too, whether it be that night or just in general, that's not really going to be really fun for them. You got to give the ability to have some flexibility here. That's the whole point. It's a made-up imagination game, okay? Do what is best for the game and the group, not necessarily just what is, whatever. And this is just, this is just straight bullshit. There is no redeemable aspect of what this guy is trying to do here, because he's not actually trying to do anything for anyone except for himself. He just wants to be a dick, and he just wants to be powerful as the literal overgod of this world. He wants to somehow make himself feel powerful by bullying his players as best as he can, and it's just disgusting. What do you think, Sammy?
I mean, it's kind of pathetic in a way, because it's like, it's just a waste. It's a waste of your time the whole time with games like this, where what's the point? Because I'm not gonna do well. And the whole point of you doing this is to try to get a one up on me, I guess.
Or to make combats interesting or
But they're
more
not
fun.
interesting. They're just tedious for the sake of tedious, which is not an entertaining way to do things, particularly. I don't know, maybe I'm the crazy guy here, but that just doesn't seem like a whole lot of fun to have to ostensibly play ostensibly do a challenge run on Dark Souls every time you want to play a game of D&D. Like I like hard D&D.
Sure.
I've played harder modules of D&D
Yeah.
like Tomb of Annihilation and Curse of Strahd,
Curse of Strahd, yeah. Like, like there are,
which they
but
can force you to do things you wouldn't normally do in a game to try to get a one up or do a little bit more. And I
because
think
the
that's
odds
cool.
are stacked against you. But,
Yeah, like there's a
like
chance that at any given time you can just end up in a really not so
a
great
really
spot.
bad situation. Yeah. But again, there's a difference between that and just literally deliberately bending the rules of the world against your players at every turn. No one has fun with that. No one has fun when literally the world is out to get you, right?
Yeah.
Where everything is stacked against you all the time. No one likes that. That's not fun. I mean, what are your thoughts on dice fudging? Like, what are your thoughts and feelings on that?
I mean, obviously for players, that's not a thing. For DMs, I think dice fetching is a valuable tool. Um, because sometimes the dice just don't go the way. Like say you run this like dungeon or whatever, and your players at every turn are getting fucking battered and just hit by everything out of the book. Not because they're making the wrong decisions, but every time they roll a dice, it just isn't coming out in their favor, right? That's not necessarily the fault of the players. If they're doing all the right things, they're making all the right decisions, whatever. That can be an extremely frustrating process to play through a whole dungeon where you're basically just getting the shit end of the stick, not for a lack of you making the correct decisions, and you as a DM would see it, you would know it, you'd be like, God, they're doing everything right,
Yeah,
but
I
rolling
really
so
want.
fucking
I would love.
poorly.
That would have been so cool if they had succeeded on
If
that
they
role.
succeed
Like,
they're making the right choices, they're just getting ostensibly the shit end of the stick. And when that happens, I think as a DM, there's a point where I think you start rewarding good play, not necessarily good dice rolls, but good decision making. I think can be something that you reward as a DM. And I think sometimes if an encounter is going poorly, not for a lack of making the right choices and being strategically relevant, but just shit goes poorly, I get it. Sometimes you leave it up to the dice. Sometimes you let the dice roll as they may, and you hope that things do okay. But I think sometimes as a DM, you get to make those decisions of like, you know what? I don't think a TPK is earned here, or I don't think you guys deserve to lose somebody in this fight. Um, I think that's a valuable tool that a GM has that no one else does at that table. Um, I've used it before. I've made decisions for character, like I've made decisions as a GM to save a character or make something maybe not as bad as it originally was supposed to be because I don't want to just TPK a party in an unearned way.
yeah,
If they made every fucking bad decision in the
that's what I
book,
mean. If they
then
if
fuck
they
it.
insist on just making stupid dumb decisions, it's like, all right, fuck around, find out. But yeah, if they literally have done their best and it's like all of that made sense, all of that was a good idea, and the dice were just like, nah, fuck you. And it's like that sucks because if you as a GM are literally, and I would pray to every god and demon in existence, a good GM will always want their party to succeed overall. And now that can also mean that sometimes, your party maybe fails to accomplish like stopping the cult from, raising or summoning the super big bad evil entity or whatever, right? Even then, it's like you still want your party to be able to succeed the fight against that entity. You want your players to triumph. And so that being the case, when you see that kind of thing, hopefully you get the feeling of like they give you an idea that they want to try, right? And then you as a GM would be like, dude, that'd be so cool if they succeeded on that. It'd be so cool. And then they roll it, and then the dice fuck them over. If you as a GM ever feel that desire of like, I would have loved to have seen them succeed on that, or I would have loved to have seen like, yeah, that thing where you want them to succeed, like maybe just give it to them, wave your magical, GM fingers as the overgod of this world, and let them know, well, you know what, the DC for this wasn't high, because it's like they're skillful, right? They have this skill. Doing this thing for them shouldn't be that difficult. So it shouldn't be about how high they roll. It's just be, yo, you should be able to do this thing. Yeah, absolutely. Give them a low DC, And again, same like the same thing. And in the case of like a nat 1, I personally feel like nat 1s aren't necessarily always just instant failures, right? But I feel like nat 1s are like, if you still can succeed even with a nat 1, just make it be like you did it maybe not in the way that you expected, right? You did it in like a more maybe embarrassing or not smooth or clean way, right? Like I've played in plenty of games where nat 1s are just, they're just fails. You just crit fail. You will always fail with a nat 1. And then conversely, you'll always succeed with a nat 20. But as me and Sam have said, that also just isn't really viable or makes sense. Because you can't just do whatever you want with a nat 20. You can't basically be like, I want to backflip to the moon. And then you roll a 20 and then you do it. That's just, it's not going to work. And so if that being the case, conversely, there should also just be certain things that even with a nat 1, you should still be able to accomplish. Maybe you want to accomplish it again as smooth or clean as you'd like, but you should still be able to like, just let them do it sometimes. Like, it's just not, yeah, I don't know. I don't like people who are so stuck on the whole, like, you gotta live or die by the dice roll. And it's like, but that's not what we're playing the game. If you want to roll dice, play craps or domino or whatever the hell else. Like, there's so many games where you can just roll dice just to roll dice. That's all you're doing. You're just rolling dice. Do that. Just roll some dice. What we're doing here is we're trying to make a story. That's the primary purpose of this. So do what you have to do to make the story fun, enjoyable, memorable, and good for everybody. That is the primary objective. Excuse me. Excuse me. But if that's about it, any other thoughts or ideas or things you have on this one, Sammy?
Yeah, that's all I got.
All right, let's move on to the last story of the day, I think. Go ahead and take it away, bud.
Sure. This is player drags down group for years, rage quit when no one saves him. This story happened about 15 years ago when I and my group were all inexperienced and living together in university. We played all kinds of systems and settings and loved to play long haul homebrews. At the point this story takes place, we had already played many systems together and now wanted to go at the Gothic Noir Vampire the Masquerade setting with a 50-50 split of brutal combat and political backdealing. The group consisted of a rich and well-connected Ventru,
yes. Ventru, Tremere.
A Tremere blood mage, a Tremere fire mage, and a Gangrel investigator. A Toreador sword fighter, and a Malkavian.
Yep.
We will get to that part. As stated, we all lived together across 3 apartments, as well as being classmates and involved in each other's hobbies. Outside of gaming...
Oh. Uh-oh. I think we may have lost you there, buddy. Sorry, hang on, y'all. I think we're experiencing some technical difficulties. 1 second.
Oh no, what's wrong?
You froze for a second there, and we lost your audio, or at least I did. I couldn't hear.
Oh, weird.
Or I couldn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, actually, it might. Maybe it's mine. Actually, maybe my internet is getting weird because it says my internet's unstable. But I can hear and see you now, though. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. Let us continue, please.
Our group always had a pretty good dynamic, with the exception of when we meet at the D&D table with that guy, the Malkavian. if you hadn't guessed. Nobody liked that guy, as he loved nothing more than to min-max his characters and bully the party. You're all creating interesting characters with backstories and nuance, while my character can kill any of you in a fight, so I'm taking all the loot in this dungeon and selling it. Go cry. You're worried that charging in without a plan will get us wiped out because you have no good gear and you're not min-max for combat? This is taking too long. I'm breaking the door down. This villain is pretty cool, guys. I think I might like working for him more than adventuring with you. Your character wants to take 5 minutes time outside of combat to build NPC relationships and manage a side business. Can we please go back to focusing on the interesting characters now? It was endless. PvP, bullying, name calling, whining. So many nights ended with him smugly leaving the rest of us, staying behind to vent about how much of a drag he was to play with. We confronted him on it multiple times, and he always played dumb or accused us of being too whiny. Outside of gaming, he was fine, but the moment we all sat down, he was unbearable. It was also apparent that he took things a bit too seriously. One night, we were celebrating Tordo's birthday, and Malkavian got so drunk he couldn't get up the stairs. So the Ventrue player carried him up to his room. Malkavian looked at the Ventrue and mumbled, "You're being unusually kind for a Ventrue." We hadn't even been gaming that night. It was just a party. Ventrue came down and told us all what he'd said, so I called him up in the morning to check on him. After an awkward silence, he asked, "Did I really say that?" He later claimed to the group that he'd said it on purpose as a joke, and we all just let it go. What?
This guy is already. I got some personal feelings already about how this dude is acting. This is.
We all talked about excluding him, but our fire mage was a foreign student who was only here temporarily, and my Toreador, who was a really great player to have both at and away from the table, lived with the Malkavian, and they were so close he told us he'd quit the group if we kicked the Malk, leaving us with half our original group size and potentially losing him outside of gaming as well. We enjoyed playing and spending time with the Toreador player so much that we were willing to take the bad with the good. So what was his character, you ask? He was a Malkavian with split personality disorder. This meant, according to him anyway, that he got to roll up 2 character sheets. His main character, which was highly intelligent and charismatic and possessed all of his non-combat stats and abilities, and his combat character, both min-maxed to their purpose and both gain XP at the same rate. The mechanism that made one personality or the other take over, whether or not he felt threatened.
That's not how that works.
No.
It's again, here's the issue. Almost anytime somebody plays a Malkavian in a Vampire the Masquerade game, it's always shit like this. Malkavians in Vampire the Masquerade are like rogues and fucking bards or paladins and shit in D&D. It's just like the split personality thing is always something people want to use to just screw shit up. And it's just like, oh my God, this guy. Sorry, continue, please.
No problem. Sec. Didn't take long for PvP to start. As a Malkavian, he chose the abilities that allowed him to spread madness and immediately set about sharing his gifts with the party. Constant hallucinations, nightmares, feelings of dread, and paranoia. We were essentially haunted 24/7, always seeing things out of the corners of our eyes and hiding in shadowy corners, even in our homes. We didn't know the cause, but he made sure that it never let up. Now, this could be fun on its own. We could play up the paranoia, and we did, or we could slowly become more unhinged and volatile. Ditto. But then he started making himself our overt enemy, plotting with higher ups, trying to steal Tremir's secrets, sabotaging my investments, or just filming us when we were off duty for blackmail purposes. His shenanigans got us in front of the prince more than once, and he was always reprimanded because my Ventrue was just more savvy than him and had acquired a lot of social power by now because I spent my downtime being useful to higher ups and acquiring power in the city. But to hear him tell it to the prince was unfair. Or tell the prince was unfair.
Yeah.
This was because both the prince and her sheriff by this point were sick of his antics, but needed all hands deck, and he was admittedly very good at wet work. So he was always punished, but never actually getting the punishment he deserved.
Yeah.
This eventually came to a boiling point when the gangrel, who had been spending the entire campaign trying to break whatever curse was causing all the hallucinations and nightmares and fear and madness, finally found his answer. It came out of nowhere. When the Malkavian cruising toward the compound, and just before entering Elysium, his car was T-boned and rolled onto its roof in an explosion of glass and steel. There were no words, no exchanges, just dice. The gangrel met his final death at the hands of the OP Malkavian, and none of us were there to witness it. After word reached the compound of what had happened, it was decided the Malkavian had acted in self-defense, and the gangrel, unraveled by whatever had driven him insane, had succumbed to the beast and attacked a member of his
Potery.
coterie.
Yeah.
We weren't buying it. We never learned Gangrel's motivation for sure, but he was a shrewd investigator, and we knew damn well he'd have done his homework before pulling the trigger on a brother in arms. Something wasn't adding up. Eventually, our drama had to be put on hold because the
Antediluvians.
antediluvians, Jesus Christ, ancient vampires capable of conquering entire
These are all
continents.
words in the game itself. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very, gothic and shit.
yeah, all awoke and things got complicated. We went globe trying to try to rebuild the now shattered Camarilla and reunite the strongest vampires we knew in an effort to, well, hopefully, one of them had an idea. Things were bad, and a single mistake meant a party wipe, and Malkavian was getting more brazen in his desire to put the party in direct danger, because he would be fine even if we all died. So the Tremere came up with a plan. Using blood magic, he could lace mundane objects with his blood, and upon touching them, a vampire could become blood-bound, essentially meaning they are increasingly loyal. At level 1, they simply feel a deep-rooted trust for the
Yep.
individual. At higher levels, they become more obedient. We made an agreement out of game that this ability would only be used on the Malkavian and never pass level 1. We didn't want to control his role playing, we just wanted less PvP and more cooperation in the group.
Dude, at this point, all bets are off. If he literally murdered like a member of the coterie, like, nah, bro, screw that. This dude either needs to die, he needs to get ashed immediately, or enslaved at this point to keep him on a leash. Because this guy is just not, nah, he's not having it.
Yeah. Where is it?
The plan was
The plan was set, the ritual was completed. Now we just needed to wait for him to grab the item and earn to be used in another different ritual. The Tremere asked him to take the urn and place it on the shrine, which he did. The GM said, after all the months of surviving battle after battle, getting your hands dirty together, bickering but staying alive, you're beginning to feel a strong trust towards the Tremere. He's like a brother who will always have your back. Malkavian, I attack him. GM, you what? Why? I just said you trust him. Malkavian, I attack him. I can't trust the Tremere. I'm going to kill him. But you do trust him. You've never had any reason not to. He's always been dependable, and now the world is ending, and all you've got is each other. Malkavian, don't trust him. Don't care. I don't care. Don't trust him. He dies. We somehow managed to avoid PvP by assuring him there was no threat. Unlike him, we didn't like the idea of players killing other player characters. He made it clear this wasn't over, and we called it a night. The Tremere and Ventrue immediately went to work looking for something, anything in the rules that could protect the party from him without kicking him out and losing Toreador. After days of reading through rule books, they found their answer, a blood contract. We'd restrain him, hand him the contract, and make him choose, sign it or catch some sun. The Tremere Blood Mage, with the help of the business-savvy Ventrue, drew up a long contract chock full of legalese that basically was meant to distract. Every line was a caveat or a loophole or a phrase that when you finally boiled it down, basically said, I promise not to kill players except if provoked. Now, we weren't stupid. Months of playing with that guy we knew he'd instantly say we provoked him by making him sign a contract. So there was a line very early in the contract that was so innocuous that no one we showed it to caught it. It basically said, in the vaguest possible terms, you will not do things we don't like. The gloves were off. We were done trying to compromise. No
Thank you. Stop.
Breaking a blood contract meant demons appeared and forced you to uphold it.
No, it's some serious shit. Blood contracts don't fuck around, bro.
We'd have a 24/7 private demonic security force watching him and keeping him from railroading the party.
Yup.
We had our plan all set, but before we could enact it, our party got overtaken by heavily armored kindred.
Damn it.
After a brief fight, we were at their mercy. Everyone was either in torpor or was in no shape to fight or negotiate. We were on our knees with guns to our heads, being told to come quietly. That guy was not having it. We all pleaded with him, begged him to go quiet so we could come up with a plan. We'd pulled off prison breaks before, and finding them now was suicide. He drew, he fired, he got gunned down instantly. He was so upset at everyone but himself. He blamed all of us and accused the GM of being unfair and singling him out. We regularly complained to the GM in private that he went out of his way to protect the Malkavian whenever
I was going to say
something stupid, which was often, when the rest of us all accepted and dealt with harsh consequences like adults. The GM knew he coddled the Malkavian, but didn't want to lose toward the Toreador player at the table. Malkavian announced he was not coming back for another session, and he was sick of being treated this way. He left, we celebrated, he never came back, and neither did the Toreador, who also felt the GM was unfair to the Malkavian. Jesus Christ.
Fuck the Toreador, bro. Fuck both of them, dude. That's stupid, bro. Look, I get it. Toreador was a cool player and everything, but here's the problem being, if they are simping so hard for the Malkavian asshole, you can't save anybody that doesn't want to be saved, man. Unfortunately, you got to let him go because he's just screwing the game. What's the point in having the Toreador if the Malkavian's just going to burn it all to the ground anyway? Like, it's just so, God, I know. I'm sorry, but damn it, dude. Screw this bullshit, bro. Screw stupid ass selfish people. It's dumb. All right, just let them go. I'm sorry, but I can't, bro. Just let them go, dude. It's just not worth it. It's never ever worth it.
No.
And again, I have personal like kind of feelings and experiences with shit just like this, and it's just like, it's never worth it, bro. You just gotta let it go. Like, god damn, dude. Anyway, yeah. Continue, please.
Very dumb. Sorry, what was this? It's been more than 15 years since that went down. I still have the Malkavian in my Discord friends list, though we never talk. I messaged him a year ago because I was interested in getting the gang back together. And I thought, hey, it's been 15 years. He's probably easier to deal with. I'll just have a chat with him and see how he feels about the way we left things. It kind of shocked me. He was the same. Still bitter and betrayed and had no memory of having ever done anything wrong to the group. I mentioned the PvPs, the thefts, the sabotages, the meanness and the pettiness, the metagaming, and even the time he rolled up an adamantium construct covered in spikes because I'd rolled a barehanded monk. And all the ways that he'd ruined other players' plans and achievements for lulz, and he just didn't remember any of it. All I could remember from all our months of gaming was at the table was how poorly we had all treated him. I'm not sure what the lesson here is, guys. Everything went how you'd expect. He never changed or improved. His friend left with him like he said he would. Our group was down to half its size, and while we were glad to get rid of the Malkavian, we really missed having the Toreador at the table and in our other events. Our future sessions were pretty great, and we had some terrific campaigns and characters ahead of us. So it had a happy ending, even if we were down 2 friends and a good player. If there's a lesson to be learned outside of ripping off the Band-Aid, I'm just not seeing it. I'd like to reiterate that outside of gaming, the Malkavian guy was pretty chill to hang out with. I hope it at least made a fun story. Go Crab Army. And in response to some of the comments, we were a close group of friends outside of gaming and had already hung out and did stuff as a group, as well as shared some classes and lived together in some combination across multiple apartments. Gaming was just one more thing we did as a group and was the only thing that caused tension. As well, our goal was not to kick him out, which would have caused a lot of hurt feelings and possibly ended friendships. That sort of ended up being inevitable after he left. The Toreador stopped showing up for future sessions. Oh. The lesson here is that one good player isn't worth another player ruining the fun of everyone else.
Literally! Like, just... Like, I mean, honestly, I will say I'm kind of jealous of like the Toreador player. Like, he was apparently so good. They were apparently so good that they were willing to put up with the absolute troglodyte bullshit of the Malkavian for this. And here's the thing, right? I hate it. Players like this, where you literally are going to take, and not only just take, like, you take a potentially problematic class that have, or at least they have features that literally would be presented as problematic in most cases. Again, the Malkavians, they are literally vampires, or in this case, how they refer to them, kindred, that they have, their minds are all fucked up. They either have split personalities, or they're just like, it's like they're high all the time, or they're just, like, they can literally see the future because of this. Like, their minds, they essentially suffer from some kind of psychosis. All of them do. That's just how it works. And how it kind of goes through or shines through is different kind of for every Malkavian, depending on how you want to like portray them. But so many people who choose to be Malkavians take that, again, as an in-game built reason to start being an asshole or start fucking shit up. Because to be fair, there is actually precedents for Malkavians are known to kind of do that. Not many other kindred like to involve or interact with Malkavians exactly because they are crazy. They're unpredictable. You don't know what they're gonna do a lot of the time. Not even they know what they're gonna do a lot of the time. And there's been, I think, there's only been really one instance where I've seen a person play a Malkavian, and it was incredible. They were amazing how they did it. It was like, holy shit, their roleplay was insane. But other than them, I've never really heard of or witnessed like a Malkavian player. Like, you can do it. It doesn't have to be crazy or whatever. But I just know it is. Malkavians are infamous in Vampire the Masquerade community for being some of the most problematic players and shit because of that. Along with the fact that the dude literally abused the mechanic to try and be like, I basically have two characters in one that have two completely different abilities and stat blocks. Yeah, it's not how that works. I mean, like, and it's just like, what I hate the most too is how this also happens in D&D, right? Where players want to take powerful classes, and it's the age old saying of power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? Where you get a powerful class, right? That's why we see so many horror stories where it features paladins, barbarians, rogues, or bards, because all of these things have a very clear connection in that they are very powerful classes. Rogues and bards, specifically in regards to skills, right? Rogues, you get them like gloves of thievery, right? They get expertise in sleight of hand or stealth, and they basically think that they can just steal, take, and do whatever the fuck they want to anybody ever, right? Oh, I roll sleight of hand to do this thing because I have a ridiculously god crazy modifier, and I have reliable talent, which basically means I can't roll below a 10 at any point. And so my natural like modifier or my natural roll at any point with this is going to be a 26 at minimum. And you're just like, oh, I can just do whatever I want. And it's like, that's not how that works. You don't get to just roll a die and have a crazy modifier and basically be like, because I have such a high roll, I can always do this thing and this never fails or this always succeeds. It's like that's not how that works.
Yeah.
No matter what you roll, if you're hiding out in an open field with it's a completely barren open field, you can't hide anywhere. You rolled a 30, good for you. That's how good you would be hiding if you could hide right now, but you can't. No matter how high you roll with sleight of hand, if you're standing out of arm's reach from me, if I'm looking directly at you and I see your whole body, doesn't matter what you rolled a 32 for sleight of hand. You can't take things off of me. I see you.
I see you. You're right in front of me. You dummy.
Sleight of hand is literally a thing where you do it when they are not focused on you. They are distracted. There is some means that you can, sneakily maybe get close enough to them to maybe steal something of them or plant something. But if they're aware of you, if they know what you're doing, and they're like, no, I'm not going to let you get close to me. I'm not going to let you get close enough to me to try to take some shit from me. No.
I have a good example of that. I had running out of the abyss. There had been some encounters and things where they have to get into a place and they want to go stealthily. And I'm like, okay, let's roll group stealth checks and we'll do that against, I'll average the group out just so that we've always kind of done it a little bit like that, just to keep the the one fighter wearing plate armor from being a complete.
Exactly. That's how most people I think do it in terms of like if you're moving as a group.
But I realized that because we have a rogue and they try to sneak in a lot of instances, they'll be like, oh, can I sneak attack? Like, can I use my bonus action to hide? And I'm like, this is a flat room with nowhere, like you're in the open. There is nothing to hide behind. And he's like, well, what if I just like hunker down? I'm small. I'm like, that's not like, you have to have something that breaks line of sight. I'm not saying you have to stay there. You know what I mean? Like there's ways to, you could make a case for certain things, but you can't just you don't just,
yeah, I was gonna say, you're not casting invisibility. Like again, you can make a case, like you said, for instance, perfect thing, right? You have a table that's been knocked over, right? And you maybe even want to just really quickly, okay, I'm gonna move over here, bonus action hide to like duck behind that table. They know that you're there, but what I will say is if you're successfully hide from them, they don't necessarily know which spot you're maybe going to pop out of to shoot at them from, right? You could shoot at them from the left side where you just came in. You could shoot at them from the top of the table or even over at the right of the table, right? You could maybe even try to make a case that you juke them out, right? You go in, make a stealth roll, you break line of sight behind the table, and then immediately, as he's maybe expecting your momentum to like carry you to the other side because you're just running super fast, you in fact pop out right at the spot where you just came in and fire at him. And that could maybe give you the time you needed, like the surprise, because he thought you were gonna go like all this way, but you went like here, and you hit him. Like, sure, I would buy that. I would say, yeah, that's fair. You gave him with your superior skills and dexterity, you juked his attention, and it momentarily broke off his focus on you, so you could get advantage on the attack. Sure, but you can't. No, you can't just say like invisible. You can't just take your cloak and be like, I'm invisible now. Like, you can't see me now. Like, I hate it when people try to do that shit too, where they're just like, I like, again, I get it. As a rogue, that is your bread and butter.
Well, now they've they added aim shot as an optional feature. So if you
it was always an optional feature. They actually made it a.
It was in Tasha's. It came.
Yeah,
it was there before.
Well, that's what I mean. In Tasha's, it was an optional feature. Yeah. Now it's just a full feature of the rogue class in the 2024 edition.
Oh, I haven't even read that.
It's just a straight up thing you can do now.
We've always ran with the bonus or like the bonus stuff, the origin features, anything.
Yeah,
like
same.
But like, so you're sacrificing your bonus action and your movement for the turn to get advantage on that one attack. That's an okay thing in my book. And I had to tell my rogue, I was like, look, this is how it works. You have to be a bit.
You gotta find something, yeah. And that's the point of rogue strategery. Be strategic.
Yeah. They are one of the more difficult classes to play effectively.
Yeah,
if you really think about it, because they usually only have one attack and exactly. It's multi-classing.
They don't get, or unless you want to use your bonus action for offhanded or whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't get multi-attack. They get the one big hit, and that's about it. So you have the whole point of them is they rely on your intelligence, your strategy. That is literally a rogue. They're attacking specific points and they are skillful. Like, you have to be strategic. They're not just the barbarian, I'm gonna run up and hit it really hard and get really angry. Like, if you want to do that, just play a barbarian or a fighter. You just hit really hard a lot. Do that. If you're looking for something a little bit more nuanced, again, a little bit more difficult, or skiffle or whatever, take a rogue. Because that's the problem though. They don't see that as like that, right? Though they're just like, oh, I get mega mondo modifier bonuses for my skills, so I basically can do whatever I want. I can convince anyone. I can lie to everyone. They can never know the truth. It's like, no.
It's the same. Like every stat has something like this. You could have the highest deception in the world, but if you lie to too many people, eventually you're going to get caught telling a lie on a lie. That's why they call it like a web or a spiral. Is it eventually, no matter how truthful you sound, some things just don't add up. You can't just say whatever you want and expect them to believe.
If you see a person literally steal something, or literally just take something, or if they're holding something and like, I saw that you took that, or I see you holding that, and they're just like, no, I'm not, and they roll like a 30 deception, it's like, you know what that conveys to me? It conveys to me, oh, wow, you really believe that you didn't do that, or you didn't take that thing. But I know that you did because I see that. You can't convince me that you didn't do that thing, or that you're not holding that thing.
I mean, hell.
But it is convincing that maybe you don't believe it somehow.
You could be like, oh, I'm not stealing it. I just put it in my pocket. I'm going to pay for it still. I don't like carrying things in my hands. Trust me, I had no ill intention here. If you come up with a good enough lie, there's and you roll well, like I could, this has happened in the real world, that people have been picked up on shoplifting charges for someone that genuinely was just a little bit on the spectrum and liked to keep things in his sweatshirt pocket. Yep. And he almost got put in jail for that, a fucking bag of Skittles, and he was not going to steal. He never stole before. The shop owner knew he wasn't going to steal. Someone in the store called the police, and this young man, had to deal with that. But like, that to me as a DM, if you were in a shop and you pocketed something and then you were caught because you did not roll well on your sleight of hand, but you rolled really well on deception, Be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like I wanted my hands free to pick up other stuff. I just tucked it away. I was still gonna pay for it. I've been here before. I
Mm.
wasn't trying to cause any trouble. If you haven't been caught for this thing before, if you haven't caused problems in this store, why would there be a reason not to believe you if you roll well? If you roll like shit, you're probably going to get thrown in jail for it.
Yeah, even if
You
you
know,
roll persuasion, it's just either
like
way.
there's
Like,
mostly, unless the guy you're going to bribe him and the guard's dirty, but like every roll there is some way to use it in the non-traditional sense. So like sleight of hand, you can use it to pick someone's pocket. You can also do it to just hide things in plain sight, or do like simple sleight of
hard,
hand kind
yeah.
of, yeah,
Tricks.
magic.
Yeah.
But like,
Magician type tricks or whatever.
yeah,
Like,
it doesn't mean you're infallible even if you roll a 40. It just
no.
means, like, because if it's not reasonable to understand,
If
like, you
there's no
can't.
logical way you
Yeah,
could do this thing,
you need to there still has to be some sort of logic to it. A high roll doesn't mean success.
no, you're not a god. Otherwise, you could just do it anyway. You wouldn't have to roll at all. Like, there's no point in rolling. Like, and I hate people that try to fucking use, oh well, I can just roll super incredible high numbers to basically justify anything I want to do. And it's like, that's not how that works. Okay.
No.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, you can never really fail. Like, you probably could never fail to pick a lock that isn't magic, You could never fail to disappear. Like, if you were in like a dark alleyway, or like, with a lot of like tall grass or something you could hide in, nobody could really find or see you. But you can't just say, I'm going to do this thing and it just succeeds because I rolled high no matter what. Like, the point of rogue is that you have to be strategic. You have to position yourself. You have to be able to do this stuff. And especially if you're going to try and do that shit against your fellow players on top of it. Like, this is where we're coming back to with this. This is the whole reason talking about this, is exactly because those classes, because they're powerful in one way or another, have a tendency to corrupt people and screw with their ability to interact with the party, because they're just like, well, but I can just do this though, right? Like, I can just do whatever I want. Like, same thing how this Malkavian did. He's like, you guys need to give me all your loot because I can kill you. So otherwise, so whatever, boo fucking who. Like, no, as soon as a dude does that, absolutely not. Gang up on his ass, take him out. Doesn't matter how powerful he might be by himself. If you all attack him together, he's not really a lot that he could do. All right, it's still action economy here. Like, that's still a pretty king element, even in Vampire the Masquerade. Like, absolutely not. Screw this guy, bro. You should have ashed him immediately. When a nigga starts saying some shit like that, where he's like, I get all the shit, so boo freaking who to you guys, and I'm gonna sell all of it or whatever. Absolutely not. Ash that motherfucker immediately. Stick a stake in his heart to paralyze him, toss him out into the sun, and watch him burn. Screw that motherfucker, bro. Speaking of which, though, I really do want to play a game of Vampire the Masquerade at some point. Like, I actually, it's pretty cool. I want to do another thing. I tried to get into it a couple of games before, but they just never quite panned out, and so I've been really wanting to for a while. But any other comments you have on this one, Sammy?
That's all I got, I think.
I do believe that then that's all that we have for you guys today. Thank you all so much. If you stuck with us this long, again, be sure to like, comment, hit that notification bell to make sure you never miss another episode of our amazing stories and tales and talks that we have here at the Arcane Archive. Subscribe and share the channel. And as always, we love y'all. Thank you so much for any support you offer. And we'll catch y'all next time when we dive back down into the archive. Bye, y'all.
See you guys.